What's going on with social media, Vicktor? Why does it make you so mad?
So first off, social media in and of itself isn't like a bad thing, I get it. Social media is cool. It allows people to connect and to talk, and it has benefits. However, when it's used for data collection and for essentially human information harvesting, sold to the highest bidders, that's kind of not cool. Kind of not okay. Specifically right now, TikTok. Fuck them. Hard.
I've heard about some controversy that's going on, but I'm not too sure. Explain it to me like a small child.
Explain to us boomers what TikTok is and what's going on in the TikTok world.
Yeah, so starting with, it's, Chinese-owned company and app, and it's essentially spyware. I'm going to start with broad, boom accusations. I'm kind of sound like a crazy person, but I encourage people to... I'm going to try to find the links, too, before this goes out, so I don't sound entirely crazy without sauce.
But you're no sniffing out.
So Apple has caught them spying on people through their cameras and collecting their information. Australia has also done the same. I don't know exactly which part of Australia's government has, found this, but some part of their cyber intelligence security teams found that out and reverse engineered parts of it and just found that information it's collecting is essentially your phone. Everything you do, everything that goes on your phone, everything you do with your phone, they're collecting it. It's going to a database, and there's such tight security protocols on it that it has revolving encryptions very regularly. So even if you do try to reverse engineer it, you only have a limited amount of time before everything gets encrypted again.
What's being encrypted? The people's data? That's normally a good thing, right? Why is it a bad thing now?
Because it's going to the people who hold the key to that encryption and no one else.
Okay.
Everything on basically your phone is being cloned to someone else who holds the key. And anyone who tries to get a peek into there only gets a very limited amount of time before everything's rearranged.
You think people should be able to peek in more?
I'm not saying people should be able to peek in. I'm saying they shouldn't be collecting that much data in the first place. They shouldn't be collecting so much data that the U.S. government is thinking of banning it. They're collecting so much information with such a tight level of security that you almost question why.
Yeah.
Why are you collecting so much, and why are you being Fort Knox level security about this? Why is it under such high government level security?
Right. Okay. So it's less of the social media. It's more.
If it's a company.
Right. Now, should we have a different approach on governments collecting data as opposed to private companies?
See, now that's the crux of the issue when it comes to doing any sort of business with China, because there is really no separation between business and the government. It's all mixed.
Yeah.
You can't really have that conversation. All businesses in the end are supposed to be for the betterment of the nation is the idea.
Mm-hmm.
In what? In China or all
in China.
Oh, okay, yeah. With communist countries, it can be tough what we would, I guess, entrust to public companies here in America, knowing that something like data collection isn't necessarily being used in the government's strategy on controlling its population, or even intelligence against other countries. That's the risk, right?
There's a huge separation between government and local business here. That's why a bunch of people got in trouble during when the pandemic broke out, and these congressmen were making deals in the stock market based on what they were hearing on inside deals. This is called inside dealing. That's morally reprehensible in the United States. Well, in China, all information is used for the government.
Is TikTok Chinese owned?
Yeah. Again, as you brought up, that those are some of the initial concerns of why a company like this exists in the first place. Okay, Chinese owned company, you can automatically assume that there isn't too much of a separation between the company and the government, or at least that the government has people in the company, making it better.
Yeah.
Enriching it for the nation.
You may have completely innocent people working there who are just wanting to do,
Yeah, they're good at their job. They need a job, they want a job, they're good at this job. They're doing good and they take pride in their work. But you also have the government inside of the company doing who knows what because they won't let you look at it.
Well, I mean, like, just as, like, here in America, CEOs have to make their investors and the stakeholders happy. The CEOs in China have to make their investors, namely the government, happy, you know? And so, like, at some point in time, there's a conversation from an employee to a government official at some point in time reporting. That's happening.
Yeah.
Just as there are CEOs having conversations with, you know, investors and stakeholders and board members. Those conversations are happening.
Yeah, but it all comes down to, like, the things that make China China and how much data they are collecting.
I think, unfortunately, the ignorance of the populace has been, like, taken advantage of, especially with this upsurge of technology. I was saying to you earlier, like, Tom from MySpace never sold anyone's information, you know? Like, It was just a beautiful thing on the internet, and once people found out just how much money could be made,
data's now a commodity.
Data has become a commodity that it has changed so much. It has, like, robbed the innocence of so many different parts of the internet.
Oh, yeah.
With the kind of manipulation that goes on Facebook, the intentionally fake articles that are posed as news, just pumped out by sheer numbers, hoping to just have the exposure of their headlines sway people's opinions in elections and other, who else knows what other things have been swayed due to the zealous headlines that have been made by bots or by people who are intentionally have malicious intent that have their own agenda.
Yeah.
You don't think it's a service? Advertising is helping me understand the existence of products that are going to make my life better. So, like, by reading my Google searches, it knows the kind of products I could be looking for, and then it shows them to me the next day.
Yeah, at that level, it's, you know, it's fine. It almost sounds fine, but everyone takes it a step further. People take it a step further. The robots don't. You're right. They don't. They show you what you want, and they're designed for their purpose. But it's the people behind those robots who always take it a step further. Because they can build a better robot that makes more money at the expense of something. At some point, it becomes too much of an expense for certain individuals, for people.
Like what? Give me an example.
I mean, this isn't going to be like a negative example per se, but like the Target bot that figured out a woman was pregnant before she even knew she was pregnant.
Oh, yeah.
And the chick was like in her teens or something, and her dad was
a family member. Yeah, I remember that.
Yeah. You know, again, but that's at the expense of that level of privacy. Now, you might say, well, it's a good thing because she got shown these things, but I think if we were to drag those scenarios out, I think we could find scenarios where it's not a good thing, where that sort of information isn't something. Again, when left to the bots, fine, sure, whatever. They're just going to get better at showing you things. But when you give it to people, it can be used for malicious intent. It can be used to control people.
Oh, yeah.
Because you trust that the bot shows you what you want. So if you trust the bot so much, well, then the people behind the bot say, well, we know what you want. We'll show them this. And then now you believe you want this because the bot's shown you this.
Yeah, but at the same time, it's like a huge service to the country because we just need to keep the money moving. Like, it's the only way we're going to survive. So, like, this advertising is so important. It's important people have things that they want to buy, or else, everything will fall flat.
I mean, sure, but again, when left to the bots alone, it works. It would work like that if programmed to work like that. But again, it's not left to the bots. It's people. The people take it because people are greedy fucks.
So it sounds like that data is going to be there regardless, right? We've gone too far to, like, stop the data being there, but, like, what are people using the data for that we would consider, like, well, that's crossing a line?
Okay. Can I give you an example of that? Knowing exactly where you expect things to be on a screen. Let's say I'm creating malware, right? And I'm trying to get some malware on your computer to get you to call me so I can try to convince you your computer's broken. And you pay me an absurd amount of money so that I can uninstall malware on your computer. And if I can figure out exactly what you expect the right icons to look like,
yeah.
If you can collect the data from all the website, like what's the most attractive font that people like? What's the most common location for these prompts to be? Where do people click on those things, And then you figure all that out, and then you set out to put your malware out, and you set it in the right place. You get the right font, you do all that, and then hopefully you get enough people to click on it and call you.
Right, okay. And so, like, the studying or research of, like, the best, most optimal user interface is, like, a really common department in a lot of companies, a lot of tech companies. And so it seems like a malware company would just be using that, right?
Yeah, one thing that can also happen is, sure, the bots are collecting your information, your data, whatever, but someone hacks into the database, collects that information, scoops it, black market, sells it. Now someone uses the data, even if it's a limited amount of data, to try to penetrate the defenses of your accounts. Well, let's say you forgot this account that you created 10 years ago with a very weak password, but it's connected to your Google somehow, or it's connected to your Facebook, or it's connected to something else. Yeah. Because it always is. And they hack into that. And now they have more information. Now they have personal information. Now they have your information. They move from there to another password, another account. Now they have your email. They already have a password that they've worked out, so now they're going to go try that password on other things, see how your security is on that. Yeah. Because most people use only a couple passwords. But that's where that level of data collection shouldn't be a thing, other than for immediate purpose of learning bots and then disposed of once that information, is learned. Once the necessary components of that information are gathered from the bot, it should be destroyed, gone, deleted, erased.
Okay, so we have a tool, which is the concept of the data gathering, and we have a minority of groups of people that are using that for intentions that we don't necessarily approve of. How do we address that? You don't suggest we stop gathering data altogether, right?
I think we're too far to stop gathering data altogether.
Yeah, hell yeah, that's for sure.
You're right.
So can you imagine an app that is collecting a bunch of data, right? And so in order to see what they could possibly doing with data, you will have to see what they're taking. So imagine if you could not see that data. You couldn't tell what they're doing with it. You can't even see what they're collecting. That would be suspicious, right?
I would just assume that people in the industry they would know what could be done, whatever type of data is being collected, right?
It all depends on what, the users agree to.
The users don't, lawfully they agree, but no one is reading that.
But that's how the law works.
Yeah, and I'm going to be honest, I've actually started reading, or at least skimming through a lot of them, just because I've started figuring out some of the keywords I'm looking for, or some of the key phrases in certain sections. So I'm not saying I read, the whole thing, but I definitely skim through them a lot harder now, looking for certain words and phrases.
A certain amount of transparency would be okay from a company. If I have a website and I let all my users know, yeah, I'm collecting your data for keystrokes and, all that. I want to figure out a better way to make my website more efficient and whatnot. But then if I start selling that, I would want to be transparent about that as well.
Yeah, and that could lead to you accidentally selling a password.
Yeah. Are we confident that their data belongs to them?
Oh, it kind of doesn't.
The spawner of the data. So essentially, people are interacting technologically somehow with a tool developed by somebody, right? And so they're giving that tool information within the interaction. Mm-hmm. So, one of the core ideas, property is a huge conversation in the physical world within governments, and the whole data collection aspect is kind of relatively new. So it seems like the idea of property is to be applied to the data, especially if it's being sold. The idea of property. Yeah,
and I don't own my keystroke information, apparently. Apparently the website, Google, owns it and can sell it.
If I type my name, Joe, in a website, and then I type in some characters for a password, I've given that. I've given that system that information.
Yes.
There needs to be some rules, or else it's impossible to give up any important information. There needs to be some sort of trust in order to do things technologically efficient.
Yeah, that is being taken advantage of.
Right. And so, what do you think the solutions of that are?
It shouldn't be sold for profit. If data is being collected, it should be used for the company's purpose of improving whatever the hell they want to improve with their AI or whatever, which will gain them more profit. However, it should not be sold for profit. Neither the product they produce nor the information they gather.
So, question, Vicktor.
Yep.
Let's say I'm developing some software. Maybe I'm making a search engine, right? And I want to buy Bing and Google's data. I want to buy their keystrokes. I want to buy all that shit from them because I want to make a better search engine. Should I be able to do that as an entrepreneur? Can't I make that endeavor possible? Like, why should that entrepreneurial avenue be closed off to me?
Because they're private businesses. They don't have to share their information with anybody.
Well, I mean, they don't have to. Are you saying the company? Is that what you said?
Yeah, like Google and Bing, like any kind of private company, that's their personal property. So, and this is going to sound fucking, I don't know, high horsey. In the interest of assuming that we're too far gone to stop data collection, that a company will collect data, that it should not be allowed to be sold or the product produced with it sold for profit or for any sort of gain at all. It should be the sole property of the company that produced it and the sole property of them alone. If the company goes under, the product goes under.
But they're not allowed to use that data to create new products?
No, they can create new products. But those new products are then the sole property of that company. They're not allowed to sell it. Now, granted, if they were to take the data from it and then strip that without any information collected into a new system and create a new bot that could perform at that level without any of that data, sure, because it's a new thing that can just perform better. It's a new product that performs better with no information or data on it or about it, or it's essentially just, it is better because it thinks better, because it knows better. It's essentially how the teacher learner bots work.
Okay, think about this. I own a company,
yep,
and I've created a product, and it's doing well, but I believe that collecting some data on how my users interact with my product will help me make a better product and ultimately more profits. However, I'm not too savvy at data collection, so I would like to employ a data collection company to do that piece for me, and outsource that specialized task. Now,
yeah,
it sounds like that is something that you wouldn't like to see companies that just collect data, organize it, and sell it.
Well, so if again, this is where it goes back to if they use that data to create a product that then gives them information and insight on how to improve another company in a consultational sort of manner. Hey, this is how your bot could perform better. These are the, instead of looking for these parameters, focus in on these parameters. Instead of having this sort of rotational web crawler, you need a rotational web crawler that also includes these search functions as well, but without giving them their product that they use to produce that information.
Okay.
And then that information that is collected is then destroyed. As long as you can, again, this is where my ignorance really comes to light, that as long as you can use that information in a way to produce a better bot that isn't connected to that information remaining.
So then having data left over from previous projects is now some sort of paraphernalia.
Yeah, because you're collecting personal information about another person, and if you plan to sell that product for any sort of gain at all, it needs to not be connected to data collected from other people.
Okay.
It needs to be able to perform the function, but without the data collection behind it.
Okay, so another hypothetical I'm assuming you would not agree with is a company that captures data, has been monitoring health records of individuals, but the information they're receiving is transcribed, so they don't know the actual person, but they just have cases of this person suffers from this or so and so, or now they use that they want to use that data to sell to a pharmaceutical company to say, hey, we actually there's room to improve the products that help treat this disease because so many people are having it and the results have not been good enough. And they want to sell that data to that pharmaceutical company to then kind of prompt them to no, should we do that?
Don't agree with that. Not for profit. I disagree with the whole idea of the pharmaceutical company, first of all. I disagree with the idea that it would be sold to them for profit, and that's just based on pharmaceuticals shouldn't be for profit. Human life and human wellness shouldn't be an industry that is for profit. It should be given that we're alive and that we're going to do the fucking best we can for each other under all the circumstances we have to give everyone the best life that they can and not try to make the most money off of it as possible.
Oh, I mean, yeah, that's beautiful, but, like, this is America.
Right, but, yeah, exactly. This is America. That's it's a very American way of doing it.
I think it's deeper than America, honestly. I don't think that we have enough empathy even to organize our societies like that. Like, I think America is a positive thing because we've hyper incentivized people to go out of their way to create things. If pharmaceutical companies didn't have that, I think it could potentially stunt, like...
Oh, no, yeah, there's definitely lots of incentivization here, but I think the worst parts of America are that people's wellness and health and well-being are entrepreneurial pursuits that are people take advantage of. Like, we're okay with throwing people out on the street because, they can't afford their house. We're okay with telling people to leave a hospital because they don't have insurance. We're okay with people who are starving because they can't afford to buy their own food. It's, because someone has to be able to make a buck off of those entrepreneurial avenues. That's why we have those problems.
Yeah, and I think that also, with the example you gave, Joe, it assumes that there aren't people who are passionate about it already. That grandma died of this disease, and that's why I'm a doctor, further advancing research in medicine, not because of profit, but because I don't want anyone else to ever suffer from this thing.
Yeah, you could find some cases that way.
I think you'd find a lot of cases if it was more incentivized to be that way. If the barriers to entry weren't so goddamn high for some professions and things because of the money that can be made in it. A lot of, like, doctor, it's almost like you need to have a lot of money to become a doctor to make a lot of money.
Oh yeah, there's also a lot to learn.
Yeah, there's a lot to learn. That's by no means do I want to discredit any doctor or nurse or any medical professional who has learned, critical life-saving information and all that good shit. It's amazing. However, it's a lot of fucking money to do that.
Right. And I think there's a difference between
And if you had a lot of money, it would be easier.
Yeah. I think there's a difference between, like, having a social safety net and then, like, also... So I guess what I'm thinking about is, like, I could imagine a system where people don't have money, can be provided food and shelter, but I wouldn't expect everyone to just be provided shelter. And nobody is making money off of providing people shelter, right? Do you think that should be the case or no?
I think everyone should be provided shelter. I think it would be easy.
Rent-free.
I think you can build barrack-style shelters in which you have people taking care of other people. You have medical professionals on staff. I think it's possible. I don't think it's even a far-fetched idea. I just think there's no profit in it, so no one wants to do it.
No, the problem is there's a lot of profit in it, and there's no profit in that, in what you're saying. You're right, but, like, there's profit in it doing it this way.
In doing it the prison system.
Yeah, exactly.
And so profit often, like, incentivizes things to be done as efficiently as possible. And I think the argument you'd find frequently is that people don't trust the government to do things efficiently. So, like, that's...
Well, and my argument against that would be you have companies who buy up more efficient patents and designs and then destroy them so that their way of making money and doing things is the quote-unquote efficient way. It's an artificial created efficiency versus the most efficient way to do it, the best way to do it.
Okay, run that by me one more time. I kind of missed it.
There are companies who buy up patents and ideas that are better than how they do business. Car companies, engine-making companies, and then they either lock those designs away or destroy them so that way they can't be used.
Yeah.
And that would then be again, that's not the most efficient way of doing it. They've created an artificial efficiency.
Yeah, so they've stunted the efficiency of the industry so they could remain relevant. There's no way around that not being a bad thing.
Yeah, I think at a certain point we should figure out a maximum wage, a maximum amount of money you're allowed to have. After that, you did it. I saw a great idea. I think it was on the internet somewhere, but it was like, once you hit that amount of money, you lose your right to vote because you can always get your right to vote back again. Just don't have that much money.
That's funny.
Because you've already succeeded in the old paradigm. Now you have to come back and succeed in the new one.
Yeah, it's like at that much money, you literally don't really have to care about laws. Like your opinion honestly doesn't really matter. You're rich. We don't fucking care what you have to say, honestly. Fuck off. Go be rich.
Let's talk about Amazon. And
exactly, yeah, Jeff Bezos, go fuck off. We don't care.
But he provided a wonderful service, so we agree to that, right?
He provides a service at the cost of human life, essentially, but yeah. I will agree that it is wonderful.
Yeah. What's the cost that you think of?
People are treated as machines and expected to run and work as machines, timed essentially to the maximum level of efficiency that humans can possibly work at in that environment. And if they fall short of that, they get negative consequences.
Right. And so they have invested resources in determining what is like the most work output they could get out of an individual.
Yeah.
Yeah, no doubt. But they are also, in order to keep their business running, they have to compete with other jobs around them, and the pay needs to be appropriate. Like, no one is forced to stay in a job. How do you think they like?
Yes, no, yes. Some people, yeah, you're not forced by the 9mm fucking pistol to their head, but they're forced by the fact that they can't take time off. They can't take the 2 weeks, even if they had another job lined up ready to go. They can't take those 2 weeks to wait for a paycheck.
Right. So you say that people just get caught in that job.
Right. They literally can't get out because they cannot afford the 2-week gap without a paycheck. Or they work so much or work such hours in that job they can't get another job started.
I guess the best case scenario, I guess, is to not perform to their expectations, to be fired, to then get an unemployment, to then find another job, right? That's the path out?
No, you can't be fired and collect unemployment.
Really?
You have to be laid off or furloughed.
Oh.
Yeah, and you can't, make that happen.
That would be tough.
Yeah, those are the only ways you get unemployment. Being fired or quitting doesn't qualify you. Yeah, it's only for people who are laid off or furloughed due to company seizures or foreclosures or bankruptcies and whatnot.
Yeah.
It's to protect those people whose fault it wasn't of their own that got them in that position. That's what unemployment's for. It's not for someone who's in between jobs.
Yeah, and I guess so. What will end up happening in the long run would probably be if Amazon is just that hole of I shouldn't have been in here to begin with. That should catch word, and they would have to change in order to remain relevant.
I mean, they would have to automate that business.
Yeah, I'm sure they are. They're working on it.
Yeah, I mean, but the issue is that jobs are an important thing in the economy, unfortunately.
Yeah, at a certain point, it's going to become way more profitable to just have the robots and not have people.
Yeah.
Right, and do you think that'll be a good thing, that they'll make Amazon more of a service and less of a cost, or?
I think in the vacuum world in which friction doesn't exist and air resistance isn't a thing, yes. But in a world where our government can't even respond properly to current situations, I have faith that they'll be able to cast a wide enough net to catch anybody really who falls in the gaps of being replaced by a robot.
Right.
You can't expect coal miners and truck drivers to be computer engineers and robot designers. That's just not a thing that happens.
Oh yeah.
Some of them will, sure. Fuck yeah, they're great. All of them are, but some of them, that's all they know. That's all they've been doing. It's their life, and you're gonna replace it with a truck that drives itself because it's cheaper and safer.
Yeah, the trucking business is a really good example. Like the average age of that industry has just been going up every year.
Yeah, you get some old fuckers in there, and they're not gonna go to school and learn new skills.
We'll just decrease the age of retirement. The people that are just kind of too far in their lives to go and learn a new career. Maybe it's 50. Hey.
Yeah, but what about the people who had to work there? Who had to work all the way till they were 65 to get their retirement? Because that was the law. Now you've pissed them off.
I mean, sucks to suck. I mean, when they made disability, it sucks for all the people who worked till they were 70,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, we should never have free college because I had to pay that bill.
Exactly.
See how arrogant that is?
Oh, that's yeah. We can't divert the trolley because it's unfair to the people it already killed on the track.
Yeah, so I don't think that'll be that probably won't be what prevents us from moving in that direction. But robots are going to change a lot of things. I expect the work week will be affected first. The 40-hour work week is kind of an American thing.
Yeah.
If you look at a lot of other countries' average hours worked a week, America is definitely on the higher side. There's some 26 hours, there's some 30 hours, and 32, 35. America is 38 or something like that. Don't quote me.
Just kind of bringing it back a little bit about the idea of potentially closing off entrepreneurial pursuits or capping entrepreneurial pursuits. I think that for so much of humanity, the paradigm that we've operated under is the acclamation of like particular resources like water, food, and shelter. For so long, those three things have been like the cornerstones of like success. And I think for so long we've just been so used to just doing that, and so much of our society is lagged because a large percentage of the population struggles to maintain those three things. And I think the argument is if we could mitigate that, we could see, society excel in some of the more luxurious parts of life that we now find ourselves occupying. Like we're definitely occupying this sphere of like entertainment and art much more.
Should we have more people there? We should have more people in the entertainment industry.
Yeah, I think it would be great. Those are the spheres that people mainly occupy once they've already, finished their, accumulation of the first three things. I mean, people have their passions and the things that they do that are specific to them, but when it comes to enrichment of the experience, it's sharing experiences with other human beings, but it's also taking in what other people have, and a lot of that is music and art, and
Yeah.
I would like to see humanity move to a realm where those are the things that occupy our time and space way more than anything. I mean, we just spend so much time worrying about oil and water, and it's ridiculous. I think those are logistical issues that when given enough scrutiny and with enough fairness, that can be figured out relatively simply.
I guess we kind of have a history of empires and societies being here and falling away, and things being done differently. And it's not like the human race is on the same page on how people should be governed in a variety of different environments. So I just don't. It's probably not like as simple as you might think to get everyone on board with the same objectives, and that's why democracy seems to be like the best thing we've had so far.
It's not that I have any particular objectives I'd like anyone to focus on. I would like people to a paradigm for the landmark of success to be changed. I don't want it to be no longer the acclamation of water, food, and shelter. I think we can handle those things for everyone, and then once there's so much competition in those three spheres, you see, and it's unnecessary. I think once we can move into a different sphere of competition, let's continue to compete in the other spheres I was talking about, music, art, and some of the more luxurious things that we've now been able to have access to in modern society and later age. Like I said, because we spend so much time competing on those other things, that so many people miss out in ever participating or ever competing in those other spheres, And so I think it'd be best to abandon those entrepreneurial pursuits that take advantage of the necessary human existence and survival. Like any sort of entrepreneurial pursuit that leads to a moral plight of like leaving someone hungry or on the streets, or having it's just so strange that we have like 70-year-old ladies like checking people out at Walmart.
Oh yeah.
And it's just, I wouldn't want my grandmother having to do that, to be able to live wherever she's living.
Yeah, it's tough. I would just say like the competition of all of those other things that are happening, simultaneously alongside.
Yeah, no, but what I'm saying is that we should, because we were talking earlier about, perhaps getting rid of the the ability to make money off of sharing data. If we were to stop the ability to make money off of, people who are hungry, people who needed water, and people who needed shelter, we could move on to other things.
Now, do you recommend that like everything that falls into those categories falls under that philosophy, or just the minimum needed for survival in this day and age. Like, obviously we can't give everyone Tempur-Pedic mattresses, but people will still want Tempur-Pedic mattresses, right?
So I think what would be great is if we were to take advantage of the charitable nature that exists in humanity and to provide some bare necessities and whatever's appropriate in each field, and then allow entrepreneurs to do their thing and make better quality products that, once a person has the bare essentials, can do whatever it is they can to enrich themselves, to have access to those higher quality items.
Yeah, I think at that point I would accept it more if we were in this situation in society. If you're somebody who doesn't have those items, but you've been alive for a while and been around for a while, then it's more easy to say, well, that's your fault. You have the basic essentials provided for you. All you need to do at this point is do your own work to improve yourself, to improve your situation, versus doing everything you can to stay in your current, just to stay at zero.
Yeah.
Like in the current environment.
Yeah, so you can give people the basic tools physically to move their life forward, but you can't always give them the basic tools mentally.
Right.
You say that now because we live in a society where we handle mentally ill patients by putting them in padded rooms and by beating them with nightclubs. Like, we don't have like a service for mental health in the modern world. It's not something
Well, I'm saying it's never been done efficiently.
Yeah, exactly.
It's not just, give everyone mental health. It's more of like, well, how do we go about doing it?
I think part of the uproar that we're seeing and some of the riots and such is that we want to see some of the responsibility that the police take on with dealing with mental health issues in the country, have some of that money and some of that funding go to some other service. I don't know what you want to call it. I don't know what it would be, but something to help mental health in this country.
Yeah.
But you don't see a lot of people actually asking for that.
Well, I'm not like a lot of people.
Oh, no, I know.
I think we should be proponents for better ideas. I think we should create new institutions to alleviate the responsibility that we put on police, because it's just not fair for us to expect them to do all that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that's the core argument of defund the police. It's not like, we don't want to take away all your money, just you shouldn't be responding to mental health cases. You shouldn't be responding to things that another profession actually does better than you do or can do.
They handle all the shittiest things. They handle all of the substance use. They handle all the mental health issues. You can argue that all domestic issues like that can fall under mental health. There's a reason why he's beating his wife,
Well, any action can be traced back to that, for sure.
Oh yeah, for sure. But I think the police should be delegated to a certain thing, the end product of dealing with murders or thefts, not just everything, traffic, and and the most serious things as well.
Yeah. So the thing about the police is that they're proactive to creating safety. It's not like people committing crimes are coming into them and telling them, hey, this bank's gonna need help. So we need someone to make it physically possible for someone to receive mental help, right? So if there's a domestic issue happening, the police still should be involved, because there could be some physical danger there.
Or they could have just a better program where instead of sending over just Joe Schmo in the blue uniform today, we're sending over him and the domestic abuse advocate social worker for person. We're sending over the people who need to go along with a police officer in case things get fucking ugly.
This is the problem I run into a lot when thinking about these things, is this, especially with the police specifically, it's the police is one part of this system that isn't efficient, that we would like to change. But in order for the police to shine in the way that we need them to shine, so many other things need to be changed. And then when you go about trying to make large changes to societies, there's lots of immediate friction. There's never a clean way to do it. And so we kind of live in this paradox where America is great because it's difficult to drastically change it, but we are in need of drastically changing it. But drastically changing it is very risky.
Yeah. And I feel I don't know if it's just, certain aspects of the internet that I occupy, but I feel like there's just this growing unease and acceptance for violence and
people are
revolution
accepting it,
type.
or they're willing to invoke it.
Yes,
Yeah.
both. Just a growing feeling of that. I don't want to say it's happening, revolution's on the horizon, but I just feel this growing unease and this growing acceptance that violence might be the answer we have to do, or that might be violence is an acceptable answer in this case, which is an entirely different topic or entirely different discussion on whether or not it's acceptable at this point.
I think most of us typically agree that least amount of violence is the best, but the thing is we all have our own perspective on things, and we don't all share it, and so one person's vision isn't necessarily another person's vision, and the world right now is extremely complex. So whenever we're shooting for some sort of revolution, it's definitely a step into the dark.